He was my husband. She was my therapist. I trusted them both. Until I showed up early to a session and heard him laughing from inside her office. When I confronted them, she said, "You handed him to me." I didn't yell. I just smiled. Then filed the complaint that would not only end her license, but also, "Hi. My name's Carla. I'm 47. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. Or right outside it, in a small town called Weaverville. Nothing fancy. I work at a high school library. My husband, well, ex-husband now, Darren, was an IT director at a shipping company in town. We were married 17 years. 2 grown kids. No drama. No affairs. No major fights. I thought we were stable. Not overly romantic, but still close. At least that's what I believed. I started therapy after my mom died. It hit me harder than I expected. She lived with us for a while when the kids were little. Darren had always been good to her, too. He helped take care of her. Drove her to appointments when I couldn't. So when she passed and I couldn't seem to stop crying, he was the one who told me to maybe talk to someone. So I did. I looked up therapists in town and picked one with good reviews. Dr. Julia Kemp. Office in an old house near downtown Asheville. Her place had plants in every corner, soft music, herbal tea, all that typical stuff. She seemed nice. Calm voice. Made me feel safe. After a few weeks, I was opening up to her more than I ever had with anyone outside my family. I told her about my childhood, my insecurities, my marriage, my sex life, everything, including stuff about Darren, what he liked, what he didn't, what bothered me, what I appreciated about him. It was therapy. I was honest. I thought she was helping. I didn't know she was studying him, learning how to break him open. At first, she just asked questions. How does he handle your grief? Do you feel emotionally supported? Stuff like that. I thought it was normal. She once even joked, "Your husband sounds too good to be true." I laughed. Now I hate myself for laughing. Months later, I remember her saying, "If you ever want to bring him in for a joint session, I'd be open to it." At the time I thought, why would I do that? I was the one with the issues, not him. Then strange things started happening. Little things. I'd mention Julia, and Darren would ask specific questions. Like what she looked like, how old she was. I told him she was married. He nodded but didn't say much. Then I found out he ran into her at the coffee shop I used to go to after my sessions. He claimed it was just once. Then it was twice. Then he bumped into her at the grocery store. Then he said they both go to the same gym now. I thought it was weird, but maybe it was just a small town thing. I told myself not to be paranoid. Until one afternoon I showed up early to a session. I was supposed to be there at 4:30. My last class ended early. I figured I'd stop by, sit in the waiting room, read my book. I walked up the steps to her office, reached for the doorknob, and froze. I heard laughter. Not just hers. His. I know Darren's laugh. It's got a sharp little gasp at the end. And there it was, right behind her office door. And then I heard her voice. Clear. Calm. You should thank her. She basically handed you to me. Then more laughter. I didn't go in. I walked down those steps without saying a word. I sat in my car for 10 minutes. Not crying. Not angry. Just quiet. Like something inside me had flipped off. Like a switch. I watched a leaf fall off the windshield and thought, this is the moment my life splits in two. That night, I didn't say a word. He came home like normal. Kissed me. Said traffic was bad. Told me about some new project. I nodded. I asked him about dinner. Made spaghetti. He said he was tired and went to bed early. I stayed up. I started planning. First thing I did was buy a cheap burner phone. Started recording our conversations at home. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. I didn't need his permission. I got audio of him lying about where he'd been. I got a call he took outside, but didn't hang up properly, so the mic picked up his voice talking to her. Saying he missed her. Saying he couldn't wait until this mess is behind us. Second, I wrote everything down.
dates, times.
What I heard. What she said. All the notes from our sessions. I printed my billing history to prove I was an active patient. I downloaded the Code of Ethics from the North Carolina Board of Licensed Clinical Mental Health Counselors and started highlighting violations. Third, I found out Julia was married. His name was Greg. He was a real estate agent. I looked him up on Facebook. Pictures of him and their kid coaching softball. Looked like a decent guy. I messaged him. Didn't say much. Just enough. Hey Greg, I think we need to talk. It's about Julia. And my husband. He replied in 10 minutes. Said he always had a weird feeling about Darren. We met the next day at a local park. Sat on opposite ends of a bench. Didn't say anything at first. Then I pulled out my phone and hit play. I played the recording of her saying, "She handed you to me." Greg didn't even blink. He just said, "Okay. So now what?" We compared notes. Turns out, Julia had used Greg's name to open a credit card. She used it for hotels,
Flights, clothes.
all while pretending she was still going to conferences and wellness retreats. We both decided not to scream, not to go public.
Yet.
Instead, I filed a formal complaint with the licensing board. I attached everything. Notes, audio, transcripts, emails,
Dates.
names. Then I called a lawyer. Filed for divorce. Had Darren served at work during a leadership meeting. His company had a policy about public conduct and personal affairs that could affect the brand. Guess what? He was put on leave. Then fired. Turns out, one of his coworkers had already noticed how often Julia was showing up at the office by accident. Julia tried to call me. Left voicemails. Sent an email begging me not to ruin her life over a mistake. She said Darren and I were already emotionally distant. That she was just helping him feel seen. I didn't reply. The board investigated her for months. But the evidence was too strong. She lost her license. Permanently. She appealed. She lost again. Her name got posted on a public misconduct list. She won't ever practice again. She and Darren moved in together after Greg kicked her out. Into a small rental apartment over someone's garage. No money. No jobs. No custody of her kid. No friends. Just the two of them. And a future full of regret. A few weeks after the dust started to settle, I got a message. It wasn't from Darren or Julia. It was from his mother, Marlene. We were never close. She always treated me like I was never quite good enough for her son. Backhanded compliments. Silent judgment. But she never said anything too bold, not until now. Her text said, "I heard about the divorce. I'm so sorry things turned out this way. But let's be honest, Carla, you pushed him away. He's finally happy now. Please leave him alone." I sat there, reading it again and again. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or throw my phone across the room. Leave him alone? I hadn't even touched him. I just exposed the truth. That message made something in me snap. So I replied, "You should ask your son what Julia said about you during my therapy sessions." Then I added, "Or better yet, ask Greg. I'm sure he'd be happy to forward you the audio." 2 hours later, she called me in tears. She said Darren had cut her off. Apparently, after losing his job, Darren asked her for money. She refused. Said she didn't want to get involved. Julia called her toxic and told Darren to protect his energy. That's therapist talk for cut her off. So he did. Blocked her number. Told her she'd never see her grandkids again. Marlene begged me to talk to him. Said I had influence. I told her I was done protecting people who never once protected me. And I hung up. 2 months after the license ruling, Greg and I started talking more often. Not about them. Just about life. Work. Kids. Pain. I found myself texting him late at night. Not romantically. Just needing to be heard by someone who understood. One night, he told me Julia had shown up at his house drunk, pounding on the door. She wanted to see their daughter. He didn't let her in. His lawyer called the cops. She wasn't arrested, but it went in the file. I realized she was unraveling. She wasn't just unethical. She was unstable.
And Darren? He was stuck with her now.
No job.
No sabins.
And now tied to someone spiraling downward. Good. Let him sit in the mess. But it wasn't over yet. A few weeks later, I got a letter from a lawyer.
Darren was suing me.
He claimed I had intentionally destroyed his reputation and caused him emotional and professional harm. He wanted money. He wanted half my retirement. I laughed so hard I cried. I sent the letter to my attorney. He handled it fast. We countered. Said we had proof of misconduct, infidelity, and even a clause in our prenup about personal misconduct nullifying spousal support. Darren dropped the lawsuit 2 weeks later. But the damage was done. He was desperate. And when people get desperate, they get sloppy. I didn't expect what came next. One of my former students, now a junior at the local university, sent me a message. She said she saw Darren on a dating app. His bio? Divorced, emotionally abused by ex-wife, healing through therapy. Guess whose picture he was still using?
Mine.
A cropped wedding photo. He cut out his face, but kept the photo because he looked thin and confident in it. She reported the profile, took screenshots, sent it all to me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sent it to my lawyer and said, add this to the file. A week later, I got another email. It was from a former patient of Julia's, a woman named Tanya. She said she saw my complaint online and wanted to talk. She told me Julia gave her uncomfortable advice during their sessions, told her to divorce her husband because he wasn't a real man, then suggested they talk more personally outside office hours. Tanya refused. She felt something was off, but she never said anything until now. We talked on the phone for nearly 2 hours. Turns out Julia had a pattern of crossing lines. Tanya said she'd be willing to talk to the board again and possibly press charges if more victims came forward. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about me. Julia wasn't just some therapist who made one bad decision. She was a predator. And I was the first person to say it out loud. When Tanya told me she'd talk to the board again, I encouraged her. I told her to be honest, not just for herself, but for anyone else Julia had manipulated. She agreed. 3 days later, another email showed up in my inbox. Different name, different story. Same therapist. Her name was Nicole. She used to see Julia a year before I did. She said Julia had started sharing personal details about her own marriage during sessions. How unhappy she was. How her husband didn't understand her. Then Julia started texting her outside of appointments, inviting her to yoga,
Coffee.
and then one night, a hotel bar in downtown Asheville. Nicole never went. She ghosted Julia after that. But the texts were still on her phone, and she sent them to me. It was the same pattern. Build trust. Cross boundaries. Flip the roles. And then control. That's when it hit me. Julia didn't just steal my husband. She collected people. Twisted their pain into something she could feed off. I brought everything to the board again. My lawyer helped organize the documentation. Then we found out Julia was applying for a wellness coach license in Georgia. A different kind of certification, less oversight, faster approval. She was trying to restart. Rebrand. Like none of it ever happened. I wasn't going to let that happen. I made a report to the Georgia board. Sent them the North Carolina ruling. Attached statements from Tanya, Nicole, and 2 others who had come forward through an anonymous thread on a local women's forum. They opened an investigation within a week. Julia found out. And she cracked.
She emailed me.
Subject line. Are you happy now? No greeting. Just, you've made your point. Darren's gone. Greg's ruined me. I've lost everything. What more do you want? I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I knew she wasn't sorry. She was angry. She thought she was untouchable. She thought being calm and soft-spoken gave her power. But when you hurt people long enough, it comes back. Harder. Meanwhile, Darren started texting my sister. They were never close. Barely spoke at family events.
But now?
Now he was just checking in, asking how I was, telling her he missed the family, that Julia had changed. My sister called me right after. She said, "I think he wants a way out." I said, "Let him rot." A week later, I got an anonymous tip. Someone who worked at Darren's old company. They said Darren had been applying for jobs under a fake name, trying to bypass the HR blacklist he was on. Apparently, one of his fake resumes listed Kemp Wellness under references. He used her name and listed her as his clinical mentor. I couldn't believe it. They were still trying to prop each other up, like two broken beams leaning on each other, hoping nobody noticed the cracks. I sent the evidence to her licensing investigator in Georgia. She was disqualified from even applying. One night, around midnight, Greg called me. He sounded shaken. He said Julia had showed up at his house again. But this time, she brought their daughter's old baby blanket and left it on the porch with a note. The note said, "Tell her I'm not the monster her father thinks I am." Greg called the police. They filed a protective order. She violated it the next day. This time, she was arrested, charged with trespassing and harassment. She spent a night in jail. Darren posted a cryptic status on Facebook the next morning. Some people spend their lives destroying others just because they're unhappy. But karma is coming for them. Just wait. I didn't reply, but I did take a screenshot. Because if karma was coming, after Julia got arrested, everything moved fast. The local paper ran a short piece about the charges. It didn't name her, but people figured it out. This town isn't big. Someone posted the article in a Facebook group for local therapists. That's when the last domino fell. Another former patient came forward. Then another. One of them, a man, said Julia pressured him to attend energy sessions at her home.
Alone.
She told him touch was part of healing. He said he never told anyone until now because he was embarrassed. I gave him my lawyer's number. He called. And then he pressed charges. I wasn't out for blood. I just wanted the truth known.
But by now, it wasn't just about me.
Julia's case went public. Local news picked it up. Therapist accused of manipulating patients, crossing boundaries, losing license in 2 states. That was her legacy now. She tried to disappear after that. Deleted all her social media. Moved out of Asheville. But not before she lost everything. Her coaching license application was banned in 3 states. She couldn't get approved for any mental health or wellness work again. Word was she started bartending in South Carolina, some hole-in-the-wall place where nobody knew her name. Darren followed her.
Of course he did.
But it didn't last. A friend of Greg's ran into Darren at a hardware store in Greenville. Said he looked awful. Greasy hair. Cheap shoes. Said he was between jobs and helping Julia with her stress. But I already knew what was coming. About 2 months later, Darren emailed me. Yes, emailed. No subject line. Just, "I made a mistake." I stared at it for a long time. Then I hit reply.
Yes.
You did. And that was it. He sent a few more messages over the next few weeks. Begging. Rambling. One said Julia wasn't who he thought she was. Another said he missed real love. Then he asked if we could talk. Just coffee. I never replied again. But I saved every message. Because a few weeks later I used them. Darren had secretly applied to a school district's IT department back in North Carolina. He left off certain job history. Used fake references. But someone on the hiring panel was the aunt of a student I helped back at the high school. She remembered my story. She reached out to me. I sent her everything. The cheating. The recordings. The screenshots. The therapist scandal. The criminal complaints. The emails where Darren lied to me and tried crawling back after everything fell apart. He didn't get the job. They flagged his application and reported it to the state's hiring board. He's now on a quiet no-hire list for public education positions. As for Greg, he got full custody of their daughter. The court sided with him after the trespassing charge, the harassment, and the mental health evaluations. Julia didn't even fight it. He's doing better now. Back to work. Focused on being a good dad. We still talk sometimes, but not as much. We needed each other for that chapter, but we both know we have to move on.
What about me?
I stayed in the same house for a while. Then I sold it. Got a smaller place closer to town. New furniture. New routines. I went back to therapy, but with a real one this time. A woman with no social media, no coffee shop run, no flirtation, no blurred lines. Just boundaries, structure, and someone who understood what real healing meant. At first, it was hard. I didn't trust anyone. I questioned every glance, every word. I kept waiting for a shoe to drop. But little by little, I started to breathe again. I changed my routine. I joined a book club, volunteered at the local women's shelter. I even started mentoring high school girls who were thinking about careers in education or counseling. One of them asked me once, "Have you always been this confident?" And I laughed. Because the truth is, no. I had to earn it. I earned it by crawling out of a hole I never should have been shoved into in the first place. Now here's the part one didn't expect. 6 months after everything went down, Julia's ex-husband Greg invited me to a small dinner. Just some friends, a few of his coworkers. Casual. I said yes. That night I met someone. His name was Russell.
Divorced.
A quiet guy. Kind eyes. He worked in outdoor recreation, built trail systems across the Blue Ridge Mountains. Nothing flashy. Nothing slick. He just was. We didn't rush anything. We took it slow.
Coffee.
Walks. Talking about books, music, real things. No games. One evening, we were watching a movie, and I told him the full story. Everything. He didn't flinch. He said, "You went through hell, and you walked out stronger." That's not something people do every day. I didn't cry when he said it, but later in bed I did. Because for the first time in years, someone saw me without needing to break me first. A few weeks ago, I heard from someone who used to know Darren. Apparently, Julia left him. Just packed up one day and disappeared. Word is, she's living out of state, working odd jobs under a fake name. She lost her license. Her family cut her off. Her daughter won't speak to her. Darren? He's renting a room from a buddy in Hickory, delivering food to make ends meet, and still telling anyone who'll listen that I ruined his life. But here's the thing. I didn't ruin it.
He handed it to me.
Same way I handed him to her. They both thought I'd stay quiet, that I'd fold, that I'd forgive or look the other way. But I didn't. I smiled. I watched them fall, and I never lifted a single finger to stop it. Do I feel guilty?
No.
I feel done. Done with people who use kindness as a weakness. Done with fake apologies. Done with carrying pain that doesn't belong to me. And finally,
free.
Because I didn't just survive what they did to me. I made sure no one else would ever have to.